If you've ever had a dental filling, you've probably had this thought cross your mind. How long is this thing actually supposed to last? Well, today we're going to dig into that.
You might hope for a lifetime, right? Or maybe a couple of decades at least. But, when we actually look at the data from some really big studies, it tells a very, very different story. And this is a pretty startling statistic. The research shows that a full 50% of fillings need more work done on them within just 10 years. That's basically a coin flip chance that your brand new filling won't even make it to its 10th birthday. This whole reality of constantly replacing and repairing fillings can lead to a cycle that dentists have a pretty dramatic name for. They call it the restorative death spiral. So what on earth is the restorative death spiral? It's basically this process where a tooth gets weaker and weaker with each round of treatment. You start with a small filling that gets replaced by a larger one, which then might need a crown, and eventually you could even lose the tooth. It's this downward cycle that obviously dentists work really hard to avoid. Okay, so what are the main culprits here? What actually kicks off this spiral and causes these fillings to fail in the first place? Well, the reasons are actually pretty consistent when you look at the research.
The two most common reasons are what dentists call secondary caries, which is really just a fancy way of saying a new cavity forms right at the edge of an old filling, and fractures. That could be a fracture of the filling material itself, or even worse, a fracture of the tooth around it.
Now, it's really easy to assume that the type of material your filling is made of is the most important factor, especially given the huge shift we've seen in dentistry over the last few decades. I mean, the use of those traditional silver-colored amalgam fillings has dropped like a rock. Since the late 90s, the tooth-colored resin composites have just surged in popularity, and now they make up almost half of all fillings. But the big question is, does that switch to newer materials actually mean our fillings are lasting longer?
Well, here's the twist. It turns out the answer isn't that simple at all. A major review from 2022 concluded that the specific type of composite material plays a surprisingly minor role in how long a filling lasts. So the brand, the exact formulation, it's not the main driver of success.
Okay, so if it's not primarily the material, then what are the key factors? What actually determines whether a filling is going to survive for 5, 10, or even 20 years? Well, the evidence points to three main categories. The first one, and this might be the most important factor, could come as a surprise. It's you, the patient. Your personal risk for getting cavities in the first place is a huge predictor. The same goes for habits like grinding or clenching your teeth. That puts just immense stress on restorations. And yeah, even things like how often you actually go for your checkups can have a major impact on a filling survival. All right, next up, and this is a big one, are the factors that are related to your dentist. A dentist's skill and experience, that obviously matters. But what might be even more critical is their philosophy on when to intervene. See, one dentist might look at a stained margin and decide, let's replace the whole thing, while another might say, let's just monitor it. In fact, get this, studies show that just changing dentists dramatically increases the chances of a filling being replaced. And finally, the specifics of the tooth and the filling itself, well, that makes up the third piece of this pretty complex puzzle. I mean, it just makes sense that a really big filling that covers multiple sides of a tooth is at a higher risk than a tiny little one. Location matters too. A molar that's doing all the heavy chewing is a much tougher environment than a front tooth. And fillings in teeth that have had a root canal are way more likely to fail. So the crucial point here is that a filling's lifespan isn't some simple question of a good material versus a bad material. It's a complex partnership between you, your dentist, and the specific tooth that's being treated. And this partnership is absolutely key. Your role is everything you do outside the dental chair, your diet, your hygiene, and actually showing up for your checkups. Your dentist's role, that's the skilled placement and taking a more conservative approach, monitoring and repairing rather than just rushing to replace. So, what's the big takeaway? While there's no set expiration date, you can probably expect a filling to last around 10 years, but that's just an average. The real longevity depends way less on the specific material and much more on you and your dentist. Your daily habits, your personal cavity risk, and your dentist's approach to treatment are the factors that truly decide its lifespan. Which leaves you with a final thought. Perhaps the biggest factor isn't what's in your tooth, but how you live your life around it.
For more information, if you want to dive deeper, here are the QR codes to the articles we used for this explainer.